your video recording, and we'll take care of the potential issue. But welcome to the October webinar. This time we're talking about strategic partnerships, and I was talking with the crew here. I'm personally very excited about it because it's the first topic that we've covered that I have some actual experience in. So I'm actually qualified to have this conversation. So if you just joined and it says Scott Pollock under your name, just turn your video off. We had a slight technical glitch.
My legion of Scott Pollocks coming to my aid.
It's Scott's strat. This is Scott's business development strategy, is just to duplicate himself. And so I don't know who, Sharad, if you turn your video off, we appreciate it. Thank you. So for those of you who don't know Martech Record, Sharad's probably one of them, and Mr. Wisdom as well. Martech Record is an independent trade publication that focuses on the affiliate industry. We produce reviews of products and services, events like this one. We publish some best practices and industry analysis, and we do this under the belief that kind of the partnership economy has a lot more potential, or a ton of potential out there. And one of the ways in which it has a chance to grow is, via the business development and strategic partnership channel. And we have on our call today 4 experts in this channel. I'm particularly excited because I actually have this job as well, so I can jump in. For those of you who don't know Martech Record, go to our website, click sign up. You'll be on our newsletter, and we send out a monthly newsletter along with a list of events like this one that we're hosting. This particular webinar is exciting because we're doing it in partnership with Firneo. We thought, what better way to have a webinar about partnerships than develop a strategic partnership? And this is strategic because we have kind of adjacent audiences. Firneo has a community of business development professionals, and we have an audience of affiliate and partner marketers, and there is some overlap there. And so this is how we thought we could amplify our brands and our distribution for this. And we wanted to kind of set an example, right? So we have a partnership on partnerships with a partner named Firneo. And I think it's a good time to hand it over to Scott and let him introduce Firneo.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And hello, everybody. So my name is Scott Pollock. I'm one of the 7 or 8 Scott Pollocks that apparently shown up due to the technical glitch. So apologies. I think that might have been my fault or on purpose. Anyway, I'm Scott, and I am the co-founder of Firneo. And as Mike mentioned, what Firneo is a community for people who work in the role of business development and partnerships. And the reason why Firneo exists is because there's not a lot of clarity as to what that career path and job, even on a day-to-day basis, really is all about. And what Firneo is there for is to be that place for people who are in that role to kind of find other people who understand what they do and from whom one can learn and grow and access opportunities in our career, open the door to partnerships, and so forth. It's an experience that I felt myself of feeling like what I would call a professional ugly duckling for most of my career, surrounded by accountants and lawyers, but not that many other people who, looked like my career, had the same career journey as me, and eventually came to realize that, well, there are many, many, many more of us out there. Insert another reference to the many Scott Pollock's joke. But in general, that's what Firneo is all about. I'm really excited to be here with Mike and Adam, Anna, and Carolyn, and all of you guys to talk a little bit more about what partnerships is all about.
Great. And I also, before we get kicked off, I want to have a genuine thanks and really bring this home to our partner and our sponsor, Partnerize. So to be clear, this is the webinar on strategic partnerships in partnership with Firneo, sponsored by Partnerize. And if anyone doesn't know where they are now and doesn't want to be here for partnerships, you're in the wrong spot. But genuinely, it means a lot when we have a sponsor that kind of walks the same walk that we're talking about. It's appropriate when you have someone sponsoring an event that has a product that is relevant. And so I want to thank Partnerize for allowing us to have this and allowing us to talk about whatever we want. We make a big deal about being independent and having like substantive conversation. And Partnerize, which is the technology that enables a lot of these partnerships, has been very generous and kind of allowing us to get together and chat about these things. And so that sets up the intros here. I'd like everyone to go around and just do a quick intro of who they are, so everyone knows who's chatting, and then we'll get into the conversation. Anna.
Perfect. All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Anna Jeffress Lewis, and like Scott and Mike, I'm very excited to be here. I am passionate about partnerships, so this is going to be fun. A little bit of my history: I've been in affiliate marketing for the past 15 years. I've been on the brand side, on the agency side, on the affiliate side, and on the SaaS side of things. And most recently co-founded a company where one of the things we really focus on is building strategic partnerships on behalf of our brands. So just excited to be a part of the conversation today. And thank you, Mike, for inviting me.
Right. Adam?
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me to the panel. My background's in e-commerce and logistics. I've been working in Silicon Valley for 15 years. Companies like Wish, eBay, Magento, and then kind of on the logistics side, working in supply chains. So I've developed partnerships across the e-commerce ecosystem, and then also with shipping carriers and 3PLs. So excited to talk to everyone today.
Great. Welcome, Adam. And Carolyn.
Hi, nice to see everyone. I'm Carolyn Zale. I started my career at J.Crew doing digital marketing for them for 6 years. And since then have been at Zola, which is the fastest growing weddings company in the US. I've been there for close to 7 years and run partnerships there. So excited to share my experience and more knowledge with everyone today.
Great. So a quick word on format here. We're going to have a conversation for the next 30 to 40 minutes. And at the end, we're going to leave room for questions. And so at the bottom of your screen, there's a little button that says Q&A. Ask questions at any time. The earlier, the better, so we can manage them and kind of see what's coming. So we won't address them till the end of the conversation, but feel free to pop a question in there. So let me set this up, right? Is a lot of the people on the webinar today are from the affiliate industry, and the affiliate industry has spent a lot of time talking about strategic partnerships and kind of this being part of the future of affiliate marketing or partner marketing, or whatever name we're going to use. But the reality is, you know, as a business development person, the go-to-market is very different for business development. There's a lot of blocking and tackling that goes on that is different than in the affiliate industry, even though fundamentally they're both partnerships, right? And there's a reason we call them strategic partnerships. But in my experience in affiliate, no one's really kind of asked the questions like, what is the difference? Like, what makes a partnership strategic? Like, what are we talking about when we say that? And so, like, I'm going to throw this out to the crowd, and I'll start with Anna again. Like, what's a strategic partnership? You know, what's everyone talking about?
A loaded question, but no, I think, and I love what you said too, Mike, because I think an affiliate partnership is a fantastic door opener to a strategic partnership, but lots of different definitions or ways to define a strategic partnership. But I think if you want to boil it down simplistically, it is a partnership that's more integrated. So whether that's integrated through technology or whether that's integrated through, you know, multiple iterations of co-branding, there's more to it than just driving a lead or driving a phone call or driving a sale. And ultimately, for me, if I'm building a strategic partnership, we want them to be mutually beneficial, and not just mutually beneficial where, you know, somebody gets paid for a sale, but there's maybe branding benefits or audience gathering benefits beyond that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Carolyn, in your organization, you actually split out, like, under you know, affiliate teams and strategic partnership teams. Like, how do you think about the role being different?
Yeah, so partnerships at Zola sits within the marketing organization. And so it's one, I would say, prong within the greater marketing department. So affiliates, in Zola's example, actually sits within our growth marketing team. So our acquisition marketing team, and that's where affiliate sits, and partnership sits, you know, besides that. I will say though, and I think something that we'll talk about quite a bit today is just how extremely cross-functional strategic partnerships are. And so while, you know, I may sit side by side an affiliate partner, we work very closely together, but I also work very closely with our product team, our tech team, our creative team, our merchandising team, our product team, because as Anna said, strategic partnerships are just more wide-reaching and deep versus just within one specific channel, like affiliate.
And when you say wide-reaching, and I'll ask this to Adam, is, how do you think of your role, right? Is it, it's across the organization? Like, what does the wide-reaching mean to you when Carolyn says that?
Yeah, so a lot of my job is serving as a strategic project manager, coming up with the project plan, serving as the quarterback, and really making sure that, one, I'm moving the partnership forward, that we're still meeting our goals, that we're meeting the partners' goals, and then I'm keeping all of the teams informed on the timelines, what we need to do, and that everything is getting done. So, I wear a lot of different hats, but I would say, project manager is one of them.
Yeah, and it's interesting that the way you framed that was almost entirely internal. Like,
Yes.
Does that resonate with you, Adam?
Yeah, I think that, to me, what makes a partnership strategic is, as Anna was saying, like it's not just kind of one engagement for a brief period of time, maybe, to generate sales in some X amount of months or something like that. It's a multi-year type endeavor where you can have many ways of working together. So it could start as a revenue-based referral opportunity, but then morph into maybe a product that you develop together and brand together and bring to market. So in that sense, I would think that it would be very much tied to kind of what's the strategic purpose going in for building a series of relationships or an ecosystem of relationships. And it may be that you don't want to have 50 or 100 partners. You maybe want to have 15 really tight, strong partners that you can see multiple areas of working together on potentially.
Yeah, and the interesting element to me, right, is you're talking about this kind of like breadth of functionality across the organization. And for people who are listening on the call who are like trying to work with business development people, how important is it for them to understand that, you're not necessarily like the decision maker, you're the influencer of the finance team, the sales team, the marketing team. And as someone who's selling to you, they kind of have to understand and be able to help you with those conversations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, something that we've done, I think particularly well at Zola is gone back to tried and true RACI charts of who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And it's really helped for these large scale projects, everyone know their place within the decision-making process. Because like Adam said, I think these can be really big, meaty deals that reach across lots of different teams internally and externally. And so that's helped us in particular keep everyone accountable and in line, and make it really clear of, at the end of the day, who the decision maker is, so that we make sure we're always tracking forward.
Yeah, I'm like creating a matrix in my head that has like time on one thing that says like how long the relationship will be, and then like number, like the functions that you work with, and like the ones that have more functions and more time are like what we're talking about here, right? It's like, and then as someone who's selling into that, you really have to figure out which one of those functions are the most important. I remember in one role, like, the finance team was the person you really had to understand the cost structure of the organization if you wanted to sell into our organization. Not the same with every group. There's a question that came up in our prep call that I found particularly interesting, which is, I think what we kind of talked about was, as the barriers to partnership fall, meaning like that there's technology out there, not to promote the sponsor, but Partnerize has this technology that it makes it less expensive to test these partnerships out. The line between affiliate and strategic partnerships start to blur a little bit. And have you guys used affiliate as a way to kind of test bigger partnerships, and like how do you do that?
I can jump in. I think absolutely affiliate is one of my favorite ways to test different channels, different partnerships, and then also identify where strategic partnerships exist. Because I think one of the themes that I'm already hearing talked about is strategic partnerships are a big lift, right? They generally involve multiple parts of the org. They involve product, they involve technology, they involve time. And so if you're going to dive into a strategic partnership, you want to know that there's opportunity there. So having the door opener of a more traditional affiliate partnership to go, there is life here. I see a light. I see a path to something more strategic. That's one of my favorite ways to get started, and is super valuable.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up to that even? How often for any of you do you see a potential partnership from the lens of there's something strategic here, let's start with all the different things we can do, versus let's focus on affiliate or another channel and use that as the wedge to expand over time into something that might be multi-pronged?
All the time, Scott. I would say it's the latter for the most part for me, where I look at, I'm like, oh, wow, there's the ocean. Wait, I can't boil that all at once. So let's start here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you could do both. I mean, I think it's, sometimes you might say like, well, what's a company out there that I need to build an alliance to, because they're potentially an important customer, but also I could see us doing 3 to 5 things together down the road, and I want to kind of tie myself closer to them. And maybe I take a crawl, walk, run type approach to building that relationship. And if affiliate is an easy way of crawling, because you don't have to maybe do a technical integration to get started doing something and seeing if the relationship will work, fantastic. And then later on down the road, if you want to invest in something product related where you're going to have to internally fight for some resources potentially, at least you've got now a track record of working together and some early signs of success.
If I can just ask one thing, and Carolyn or Adam or any of you have a thought on this, something that you said, Adam, that struck out is you used the word sometimes a potential partner is a very important customer. And I'm curious how you think about the term customer versus partner, because as I think anyone who's been in strategic partnerships or business development can attest to, the language is both important and confusing. So how do you think about companies that you could work with in some capacity as partners, and how does that differ from them as customers versus some other way that you might engage with them?
I think it's a lot of it is kind of what you just said, Scott. It's, at least in my mind, it's how you engage with them. And this kind of goes into almost like philosophy of BD as well, that your partners are your partners. And the goal is that both of you guys benefit from that partnership, but they're also your customers in the sense that you want to serve them, right? To me, that's a successful strategic partnership, is when you're both serving each other almost as customers of each other, right? In your own, business partnership, if that makes sense.
I always use the analogy that, a partnership is like any successful relationship. So the timing has to be right, the goals have to be aligned. And if one of those things is off, then more often than not, both needs are not going to be met. So for instance, timing specifically, in my experience, has been the biggest hurdle. Resources second to that. But, if the timing of, what another partner is working on doesn't align with Zola's timeline, then often, something won't come to fruition.
Is that something you will ask up front now? As you've learned, that's the most important, is like, what is your timing?
Yeah, the 2 big things that I try to start every call with is, what are your goals and what is your, rough timing for this discussion? Because if I'm looking to, test something really quickly within, the next month or 2, but that's a 2022 goal for them, that's a very different conversation.
Yeah. This brings it back to the question I asked before is, are there times you'll be like, our timing's off, why don't we set up an affiliate relationship and kind of see, what works? Or do you do things like that?
We do, yeah. And I would say that affiliate is just one of those options. We've tested different partnerships through content partnerships, through social media swaps, through blog swaps, events, PR, really tapped into all different marketing channels. But I think affiliate can be one of the strongest ones because it can really produce, real revenue for both companies. And so I think that's one that's, particularly interesting, but I don't think anyone should feel limited to just affiliate as an entryway.
I want to flip this one to Scott, because, Firneo is all about, developing the skills of the business development person. So there's a lot of people on the call who are, affiliate people who may be thinking, how do I broaden my skill set, potentially get into different roles? So Scott, if you could, talk to us a little bit, or maybe lead the discussion on, what are these skill sets? What do you see out there among your community of the skills people need to be effective in these roles?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak about it for just a second, but we'd love for Anna, Adam, and Carolyn to speak to this as well. I mean, I think the role of partnerships and business development is, often charged with the same goals that anybody in the business is charged with developing, right? Driving revenue or driving, brand value or some other source of value for the business. It's just applied through a certain lens, right? Of how do we, maybe with limited resources or by leveraging someone else's resources, get something done. And so I think the skills of that are often very similar to the skills needed in any other part of the business. As a CEO or a GM, you need to be good at building relationships and leveraging them, and to doing financial models to see what the ROI might be on an opportunity, to sales and actually opening the door to opportunities. So I mean, at a high level, I think there's a lot of those skills, but I would love to turn it to the panelists. Adam, Anna, or Carolyn, and any thoughts on what you think are some of the most important skills that you leverage day to day in your job?
So I love one of the words you just used, Scott, which is driving. And I would say that to me is the most important skill in business development, is being a driver or being a quarterback, right? You said it really well. And Carolyn, you alluded to this earlier, that there's lots of different parts of the business that get involved, and somebody has to be driving those initiatives forward and essentially keeping everybody organized and going, where are we at with this? And, how do we move forward with this? And where are the barriers? So really being that person that also knows a little about a lot, right? And is very analytical, to your point too, Scott, because numbers are everything, right? Acquisition and ROI is really important. And that's the goal of these partnerships. But understanding how technology works, understanding how the numbers work, and that project management piece, I would say those are key to success, because without somebody really pushing each step forward, they don't get done, in my opinion and experience.
Yeah, I think you're kind of a strategist, a diplomat, like a project manager.
I love that word.
Yeah, and a communicator, and as Anna was saying, I think maybe having had some broad-based experiences, if you have done some marketing, if you've done some product development, if you've done project management, if you have experience in an industry and you've maybe approached that industry from different types of companies or roles, then you understand it. You can come up with ideas that other people may not have come up with, or just have a certain intuition that could be very helpful.
Yeah. So Carolyn, the question for you that relates to this idea of being the kind of the driver of lots of different initiatives, it also relates to what we talked about earlier around working with other teams. So in particular, Carolyn, you came from a digital marketing background. Presumably you have a deep knowledge around digital marketing and can be an even more effective driver of how to work on partnerships that have that element there. But I'm curious if that's the case, and how well you apply that, or how much you need to apply that, but also in skills that you may not be familiar with finance or whatever other skills that you need to work with other teams. Like, what are some of those skills, and how do you find yourself engaging with other teams?
Yeah, so I will say, having a strong digital marketing background has served me well in understanding, especially when a partner presents something to me in a marketing proposal. I can, review it very quickly. I can see through it very quickly. I can understand if there's, fairness there. But I will say, building strong relationships with my cross-functional partners, legal, for example, our head of legal and myself work very closely together. CFO, our head of finance, product managers, and tech, so that I can understand what the heck goes into a technical implementation, because that is certainly not a language that I speak. So I would say relationship building internally has been really a key to my success. But then on the flip side, really investing the time externally too, to invest that time with your partners, setting up either weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever makes sense, calls to really just make sure that you're building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, this is a relationship. And I found that, my most successful partnerships have been ones that I've really invested that time into to get to know these people on a personal and professional level, because I think that leads to, success overall.
I think the best advice I got before I started my BD career was from someone who said, get to know your CFO well and be friends. And I can see that one of my former CFOs is on the call, so it worked. Hey, Mike.
You did that well.
maybe there's another reason he's on the call. I don't know. But there's something you guys didn't say that I think was the most interesting as I was listening to you. No one said sales. Like, I listed a lot of skill sets and all of them resonate with me, but no one said sales. Why not?
I think sales kind of all of those pieces that I think everybody talked about are a part of sales. But I think when, at least in my mind, it's almost like if you go back, the word affiliate, I think, has gotten a better reputation over the years. But if you go back 5 to 10 years ago, we all started using the word publisher because the word affiliate was a dirty word for a while. I don't think it's that way anymore. I think it's, gained more respect. I mean, look at this webinar that we're having, but it's almost, I think the word sales almost has that same connotation where you kind of, in a conversation like this, you hear used car dealer. It's relationships, it's being genuine. Ultimately, that leads to sales. But I think in strategic partnerships, it's just getting there through a little bit longer path, shall we say, versus like, hey, buy this today, if that makes sense. But that is funny. You're right.
Yeah, observing. Anyone else want to react to that observation?
I guess it's like, and I've talked to like Scott and others to better understand sort of how the industry thinks of different types of partnerships and, what are the expectations. So my kind of understanding, and maybe Scott can chime in, but when one thinks of sort of a channel partnerships role, for example, that might be one where maybe you are in a sales team or you're working closely with a sales team. Maybe you have some sort of sales commission aspect to how you're compensated because you're opening up a channel in order to create, sell through or with that channel partner, right? Versus maybe if it's what we think of as kind of a product partnership, then you're, more focused on actually building something together. There's engineering work or technical work involved. If it's a brand partnership, then it's more about, co-branding, creating something, putting your labels on it, right? So maybe the product and the brand would be a little less salesy potentially, but
my experience, right, is obviously you're kind of in a sales role because you're out there trying to generate revenue, but like the day-to-day is talking to your finance guy, talking to, the sales team, talking to marketing. And so sometimes you kind of like, it's not when a salesperson's sales job is to sell every single day. Your job is to do that, but via kind of all these different elements in the organization. Which brings me to one other observation is like, there's one thing you kind of can't have is a giant ego, right? Like if you have too big of an ego, because like other people are going to get credit, right? And I've noticed this about BD people is like at the end of the day, someone else is going to take the credit for whatever it is you built because it's, successful for one channel or whatever it is. And I don't know, does that make sense to you guys? I don't know. That's something I was listening to you guys. I'm like, you guys are not all big ego people, but you're effective.
It makes perfect sense. And you're absolutely right, Mike. I think in BD, you're essentially a bridge builder. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that others' success, right? If you build a bridge to another department's success, then that's your success too. But you bring up a good point, that you want to make other people successful, right? Then I think that's when you're being a very effective BD person, because that means you've built the right bridges and you've made them effective.
I think it's at the same time also one of the biggest challenges of a career in BD and partnerships, which is that you are so focused on helping grow a business and working with all the other teams. And as you said, Mike, somebody else is going to take credit, and that's fine. But it also means it's hard to sometimes justify or quantify the value that you're creating. Because with affiliate, the result. You can track and monitor how many, people bought a product through you as a publisher or vice versa. With partnerships and business development, those relationships are not always as clear and trackable. And that's something where the balance between giving credit to others, if you will, to use your terms, and finding a way to take ownership of it is a tricky balance.
Also why you make friends with your finance person. You can measure it. But that you bring up an interesting question too, which, by the way, we did not prep this question, so you guys can all tell me not to ask it. But measurement, right? Like, as Scott points out, sometimes these BD relationships are a little more difficult to measure. Are your organizations getting better at aligning KPIs across channels? And when I say across channels, it can be anything, but obviously we're talking about affiliate and strategic partnerships. Like, is that getting easier to do as data is easier to access, or partnerships are the barriers a little lower?
Yeah, I would say, having the right tools in place from the get-go is really a key to success here. And also, not to sound like a broken record, but making sure that you align with your partner on what are those measures that you're going to be reporting out on, and what does success look like to them. Because, $10,000 might be successful to you, but they might be expecting this to be $100,000. And so really aligning upfront of what is your definition of success, and making sure that you work with the appropriate teams, whether it's your finance team, product team, tech team, as part of this workflow, to make sure that you can report out on those things. That's been a big learning for us. And you know what? That's not always easy, especially when it comes to brand partnerships where something's just not as clear as measurable. Coming up with creative ways to figure out how you can still deem if something was successful or not.
Yeah, so you got to align KPIs across your own organization, but also with someone else, which
because otherwise you're in hot water. If you think something was a smashing success, but your partner doesn't, then what was the point of all of that effort? Because they're not going to want to go forward or renew the partnership, or be invested to grow.
And how when you run an organization that does this, professionally, like, how do you set up the beginning of the relationship so you're ensuring that people's goals are aligned? Like, what are the questions you're asking to start?
No, it's a great question. I think Carolyn answered it really well. It's setting expectations. So in a lot of partnerships, we actually create a 90-day plan. We go that far out because that's how long it takes a lot of times just to get set up. And it's setting those expectations to go, hey, this is not a faucet that we can turn on and off. There's setup involved, there's integrations involved, there's tracking involved. There's creative, there's collaboration. And so this is going to be a multi-month process to be able to go live. So setting those expectations, I've done it where I haven't set those expectations and I very much regretted it. So that has become something that we do now, is we have that chart and we say, hey, this is what it's going to look like. And then it's just, it's over communication as you go forward. So Carolyn, I think you said that really well, right? It's aligning, and then if things change, which ultimately they will, and that's, you have to be agile in partnerships, but then updating everyone that's involved. I think that's really key as well, because then you maintain that alignment, you maintain that focus. And then to go back to my favorite driving theme, you continue to be able to drive it forward.
Got it. And that sets up the next question nicely, which is, you've talked about, all of you have talked about, expectation setting up front, timing setting up front, consistent communication, tracking the results, kind of adapting as things go. What are the unexpected barriers? Like, what are the things you run into where it's like, I didn't see that coming, that kind of been learning throughout your career?
There's so many.
That's why I'm asking.
We all paused of where to begin.
Right? Like, well, where do we start? So I would say probably the unexpected barrier that at least I run into the most is technology barriers. So I think usually when you start a project, you go, okay, if we do it this way, and this way, it should go, linearly this should work. And then you find out, oh, wait, there's another platform over here. Oh, wait, there's another database over here. Oh, wait, in order to make this work, we have to pull in that conversion data. And unfortunately, no matter how well I think you scope a project, there's usually something you didn't know.
Between
So
organizations, yeah.
exactly. So that's where you have to be flexible and go, okay, well, let's just relook at this and kind of put the scope back together. But that would be the most common, I think, for me.
I definitely agree. Yeah, like that's that always, you know, the technical integrations seem like they're going to be easier than they actually are. Plus, you're working with your engineering team and their engineering team, so there's coordination. I mean, just another one obvious is just something within the partner, like their strategy changes, or they have a reorg or something like that. You know, if you had that governance structure in place of, okay, here were the people that you were going to work with, you know, maybe one person leaves and suddenly it's like chaos basically. So you have to kind of adapt on the fly.
Yeah, that's why I find it's important. You got to get to know the broader organization of your partner. Like if it's just your one champion, you know, that can disappear pretty quickly, and it does.
I totally agree with what Hannah and Adam have said, and have lived a lot of these too closely recently. But I will say that, you know, Zola in particular, some of my most successful, but some of my most challenging partnerships have been with, you know, much larger organizations, where, you know, you do discover a lot of, you know, technological hiccups or code freezes when it comes to holiday, or, you know, things that just naturally take longer than it would in an organization that you might be used to, or you know, an organization that's much more agile and, you know, scrappy. So I think, you know, you can prep as much as possible, but I think, you know, a challenge that I've had to face is then how do you communicate that internally? Because knowing that there's a lot of internal stakeholders and an executive team and a board that, you know, certain timelines have been promised to, like, those are really difficult conversations. And we've had to have some of them at the 11th hour. We had a partnership that was supposed to launch, and truly the day before, the partner said, we had a tech glitch, we can't launch. Oh, wait, our holiday code freeze starts tomorrow, so this has to be bumped out, you know, another 2 months. And that was a really difficult phone call to receive. And then figure out, you know, how do we regroup? How do we communicate that internally? And, you know, figure out a path forward.
That's
I have
go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about, you know, that's one good example of kind of the challenges of not only signing a partnership, but actually bringing it to market. And then there's also the challenges I'm sure that come once you're in market with a potential partner. I'm curious for all of you, where do you most frequently see those challenges, right? You talked about technology being an issue. Is that, you know, technology of getting a deal signed, getting something into market, or keeping a deal alive and flowing with value? Where do you mostly see some of those challenges come up?
I think I think it's at each step there's challenges, right? So it's that kind of in a negotiation stage, you're figuring out, you know, can we be compatible here? Can we get to some mutually beneficial arrangement where both of our internal teams can accept that? Can we, if there's some sort of commercial incentive, can we do we have alignment on that? Okay, we can get past that. Now let's start implementing it. Now it's maybe more the technical or the internal priority and org alignment type stuff, or goal setting, and then kind of down the road, and as it matures, you know, now, you know, the other thing you're sort of also maybe competing against other partnerships that partner might have. So, you know, how do you get prioritized within whatever number of other, you know, projects they're doing internally, and keep things sustainable that way?
I would agree with Adam. I think that with every level of the partnership, you like uncover a new layer. And even to go back to like, what are the characteristics of a great BD person? Firefighting, problem solving, because with every layer, you kind of uncover a new list of problems to solve. But that's also kind of, it's part of the fun. And it's also how you continue to deepen the relationship with your partner and with the rest of your team. But no, I think well said, Adam. It never stops, but that's weirdly why I think we all keep coming back, because I don't like a boring day. So, hey, let's do it.
Yeah, well, that is funny you say that, and true. Like, things are gonna go wrong, right? And you build these relationships by solving problems with people, right? And that's how you kind of like grow your career. And so it leads to kind of a last question here. Is there's people on the call who may be interested in getting into this career. When you guys are hiring, what are the traits you're looking for? Like, how do you interview someone, and what are you looking for? Not what questions you ask, but like, what are the things you're looking for to kind of shine through when you're hiring?
I mean, I can jump in. Honestly, the top for me is attitude. I go back to being a driver. It's, do you have the right attitude to not be afraid, not to ask questions, and not to, and have the positive attitude that no matter what problem comes up, there is a solution and I can figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, I know how to ask questions so that the problem can get solved. That to me, over experience, over time in the industry, over a network, honestly, that's the most important characteristic.
Yeah, that lack of ego as well. Adam or Caroline?
Very well said.
I was going to say problem solver. So I like coupled with attitude, because I think those two things certainly need to go hand in hand. Just continuing to find creative solutions and, marching forward and not necessarily taking one no is something that's final, because, there's a lot of ways to get something done. And I think, part of a successful partnerships person's job is identifying what those potential paths forward are and weighing the pros and cons. And if, one path doesn't, work out, knowing that there's, a couple other ways to reach the same solution.
Yeah, since I agree with what's been said. I mean, again, sort of orchestra conducting, kind of the keeping it all in balance, and maybe also just the ability to see, like, if you develop something maybe in one market, like how could that be replicated easily in another market? So like scaling up, thinking in terms of how do we scale this program quickly as well.
I really just put this webinar together to talk about how charming and humble and easy to work with we all are. So this is just an ad for Scott. Last question for you and kind of the Firneo community, right? Like, you every day are looking at the challenges business development people are facing, right? And what are the things that consistently pop up in your community in terms of challenges they need to overcome, right? Like, what are the things that are concerned right now, or people are worried about, or they come to you for training for, right? What are the things we might not know?
I'd say there's a couple things in terms of the day-to-day, and then I could also talk about just kind of the longer term. So I think the day-to-day, one of the biggest challenges is this idea of getting resources, right? Got endless number of opportunities for potential partnerships. But again, as we've talked about here, it requires collaborating internally and getting a product team or a finance team or a legal team to get on board. And the tips and tricks that go into that, it seems simple, but to actually get someone to prioritize your initiative over whatever else is already on their plate, getting all of that buy-in is a tricky, multifaceted, complex thing, and getting deeper in how others do that and how to do that successfully yourself and how to overcome the specific hurdles. That's, I think, one of the biggest topics that comes up all the time. I think that's more of the day-to-day. I think long-term, the other kind of question that arises frequently that we talk a lot about within the community is this idea of, like, where does the career path go? And I posted something on LinkedIn a few weeks ago about this idea of there being a chief partnership officer, right? Like, there is no, well, actually, there's exactly 200 people on LinkedIn with the title of chief partnerships officer out of 750 million people on LinkedIn. I think the role of chief revenue officer, chief strategy officer, even chief marketing officer are relatively new roles in the past, call it 10 to 20, maybe 30 years. I believe there are opportunities for the partnerships ecosystem at large to start to clarify what the path of partnerships is, to create clarity of how much value it creates for an organization, such that you can justify the idea of that being a holistic strategic role in an organization. And the more conversations like this that there are, amongst people saying this is what we do and how we do it and how it drives value, the more that path will be paved up to a C-suite role, which is ultimately maybe a peak of a profession for any of those other disciplines. So those are two areas that I think come up quite a bit.
So in summary, we're charming, humble, magnanimous, and deserve a promotion. So
couldn't have said it better.
So we're kind of nearing the end of time here, and we have one question. So if anyone has more questions, now would be a great time to put that in the bar at the bottom. But I do love this one question. It's maybe the best question that has been asked. See, humble, no ego. And I wish I'd kind of thought of this, because it's such a clear question. Is what is an example of a more typical strategic partnership that involves product and technology, et cetera, that is very different from affiliate marketing? And so the panel is up, but I like that question. Like, describe two different partnerships, one that's affiliate and one that's, and you can use real terms if you want.
I'm happy to take that one. So Zola's within the wedding space. So a traditional affiliate partnership for us would really be with an editorial or a content site. So if you think about a brides.com or a blanking, like a Harper's Bazaar or something like that, where if Zola got a media hit and they linked out to Zola, we would get credit for that. Very traditional. They link us, we get credit for that. Someone signs up, we pay them a bounty, said and done. However, a strategic partnership, and one of our biggest and most successful ones to date, has been with Crate and Barrel. So I'm sure a retailer that everyone here knows, which is a partnership where we sell Crate and Barrel's private label goods on our site. So Zola works with over 800 brands. Couples can come on, they can add those brands directly to their registry, but Crate and Barrel, being a standalone retailer, was not a part of that assortment. So we reached out to them. We said, hey, we think that there is a demographic overlap here. We actually see through a third-party tool that we have that people are externally adding your goods to our registry. We think there's a lot of pent-up demand here. We think we could help you grow your business even more, grow your sales, grow your awareness, grow your likeness within the wedding industry. Let's integrate. And so that involved their product team integrating into our site, sending us their product feed, their inventory, their imagery. That involved our creative and marketing team coming up with campaigns to announce it. It involved the finance team figuring out how the heck we were going to build a business model that would be mutually beneficial for both of us. So that was much deeper of a relationship versus us just reaching out to a content and editorial site and saying, hey, well, you mentioned Zola, and we'll pay you a bounty for everyone that comes over and signs up.
Yeah, there's a unique element of what you're saying. There's a lot of unique elements, but one of them is the finance team, right? And what you're saying is there's cost to this, right? And like the costs are spread across the organization. And so there's complexity to those costs. And being able to figure out what those costs are, put them in a model, sell that model through the organization is different than I would say kind of a typical affiliate relationship, right?
Yes. And I would say, part of my job and with other pitches has been really showcasing what the difference is between a deep strategic partnership compared to an affiliate partnership. Because sometimes it's really difficult to see on the surface. And so, we've done a lot of work to build up business cases to show to our partners, why a strategic partnership could be more valuable than just working with them on an affiliate basis.
Right. Anyone else have thoughts on that? I thought it was a great answer.
I think Carolyn said it really well. I got nothing else to add.
Well, cool. And if there's any other...
Okay, thanks.
Well, great. I don't think we have any other questions out there. And this has been a really great discussion, and I appreciate everyone joining. I appreciate Firneo for doing this experiment with us and figuring out if we could co-host a webinar in partnership, and I think it was successful. And most of all, I appreciate our sponsor, Partnerize, who is walking the walk. I'm really bad at the business analogies, but they're walking the walk, right? they're not only supplying the technology that enables this, they're helping evangelize through webinars like this and talk about the issues and the opportunities. And so thank you to them. So thanks for coming to our webinar on strategic partnerships in partnership with Firneo, sponsored by Partnerize. I really enjoy saying that. But thanks everyone for joining. And this will, by the way, anyone out there, we'll be sending out a link to stream this via the Slack channel and via email. So if you need to share it with your friends, or if anyone didn't get a chance to attend all of it, you can watch it there. So thanks everyone, and good night.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.